wrongful detainment, insurance overbilling, and one whistleblower case that mysteriously vanished mid-trial. And guess what? Their patient acquisition forms listed referral bonuses for community agents. $000 per intake, $5,000 for high-rises clients with chronic care needs. I didn't need a smoking gun. I had a Nepal trail, but I still needed to prove the HOA was in on it. That came 2 days later. Her name was Melody, HOA board secretary, 45 years old, soccer mom. And apparently 2 weeks from quitting, she knocked on my door with a manila folder under her arm and guilt written all over her face. "I can't keep pretending I don't know what's happening," she said, eyes darting around my porch. "I didn't sign up to traffic people. I signed up to complain about sidewalk chalk." I invited her in. Rusty barked once, sniffed her shoe, and flopped on the rug like an old cop giving the go-ahead. She opened the folder and spread out 10 documents, all stamped, all official, all signed by Karen Mitchell and 2 other board members, Don, the budget guy, Levinsky, and Marissa something or other who ran the pool committee. At the top of each form, community wellness transfer authorization, and below that, a space for the subject's signature, all blank, every last one of them. Melody pointed to a line at the bottom. "These are forged by Don," she whispered. "He used to work in real estate. Said he still had some of his old tricks." I took photos of everything. Cross-checked the names. There were 4 other victims in that stack. Elderly residents, no family nearby, all relocated within the past 6 months. The names matched address transfers, HOA meeting minutes, even legal guardianship filings, all under Karen's control. They'd built a quiet little machine, identify a target, document noncompliance, vote on a wellness referral, send in the van, and profit, all dressed up in HOA letterhead and fake community concern. But that wasn't the worst of it. Melody pulled out one last paper, a printed email chain, subject, property access after relocation. It was from Karen to Don, discussing how once the old man is transferred, they can move forward on reviewing his parcel for community benefit. Don's reply: "We should check under the shed first. Melody says the file might be buried there. We don't want any surprises if the city reviews." I sat back, stomach churning. Grandpa had mentioned something weird in passing last fall. Said he needed to hide the covenant before they find it. I thought he meant his war medals, or maybe some old legal dispute from the 8S. But this was different. This was motive. They hadn't just targeted Grandpa because he was stubborn. They went after him because he had something buried on that land. Something that made the property worth more than HOA pride. Maybe a deed. Maybe a boundary exemption. Maybe something older. Whatever it was, they were willing to kidnap him for it. Willing to forge legal papers, stage a van extraction, and lie to the city. This wasn't a case of HOA overreach. This was organized crime wrapped in landscaping jargon. I thanked Melody. She asked if she could go now. I told her yes, but not before. I handed her a burner phone and said, "If you get any calls from Karen, let me know. If anyone threatens you, call 911 and say the word Rusty. That'll flag it as an officer emergency. I'll come running." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and disappeared into the night like a shadow in yoga pants. When she was gone, I sat back in my kitchen chair, staring at the documents spread across my counter. I had proof. I had motive. I had names. All I needed now was the last missing piece. Where the hell did they take him? By the time I stepped onto Grandpa's lawn again, the sun was just beginning to cut through the morning mist, washing the old property in a pale gold that made everything look untouched. Untouched. That is, if you didn't count the gouges in the grass from van tires, the taped-over windows, or the dying rose bush out front that hadn't been watered since the day he was taken. The house was silent, but it didn't feel abandoned. Not to me. It felt like something was holding its breath, like the land itself was waiting for a fight. I walked past the porch, past the flower beds that had once been his pride, and made a beeline for the old shed. It wasn't fancy, just a weathered structure with rusted hinges and a faded horseshoe nailed above the door. But Grandpa had always said, "When I die, don't go looking in my will. Look under the shed." At the time, I thought it was just old man metaphor. But after Melody's documents and that email about the file possibly being buried, I figured I'd better take him literally. The door stuck like always. I had to kick it twice to get it open, the wood groaning like it didn't want to be disturbed. Inside was the usual clutter. Lawn tools, paint cans, Grandpa's broken recliner from 1987 still covered in duct tape and honor. I stepped carefully, scanning the floor for anything out of place. The third board from the left was warped, just slightly. I knelt down and pressed my fingers along the edge. It gave with a loud creak. Beneath it was a shallow cavity, maybe 3 feet deep, lined with stone and wrapped in a black contractor bag that had definitely seen better days. My heart thudded. I reached in, dirt falling into my sleeves, and pulled up a heavy dented lockbox, combination style, the kind you don't crack unless you know the digits or have a blowtorch. Lucky for me, I did know the digits. 1912, the year Grandpa's father bought the land. It clicked open with a sigh like it had been holding its own breath. Inside, I found what the HOA had been looking for and what they were terrified I'd find. The first item was a deed, handwritten, faded, dated October 3d, 1943. It named my great-grandfather as the sole owner of the entire parcel, including all sub-watershed rights and mineral access. The second document was even older, a covenant sealed with wax signed in shaky cursive by 3 founding members of the town's original planning commission. It granted eternal exemption from all future subdivision governance or residential oversight in perpetuity on account of the land's designation as a historic veteran homestead. My family's land was grandfathered in quite literally beyond the reach of any future HOA. No board, no committee, no smiling tyrant in a pantsuit had legal claim to override it. The final page was a letter from Grandpa to me written by hand dated 6 months ago. If you're reading this, it began, "They've either pissed me off bad enough to finally get me committed, or I'm dead and you're looking for answers. Either way, the truth's under your boots. Don't let them sell it. Don't let them take it. And for God's sake, don't let them pretend they were ever in charge." I sat on the shed floor for a long while, sunlight bleeding through the wooden slats like gold teeth. My jaw clenched, my pulse slowed. This wasn't a family matter anymore. This wasn't a bad neighbor dispute or a misguided wellness transfer. This was elder abuse. This was property fraud. This was unlawful detainment with financial motive. I took photos of every page, then locked the box again and slid it into the trunk of my cruiser. On the way back to town, I made 2 phone calls. One to the county recorder's office and the other to a friend in the attorney general's office who owed me a favor from a federal land dispute case I helped close last year. I told them what I had. They told me they'd seen this before, not here, but elsewhere. HOA boards using abandonment clauses to seize unattended properties, retroactively applying fines to discredit ownership, then reselling through shell corporations. But they'd never seen it with this level of documentation. This could go federal, my contact said. "You got names?" I gave them 3. Then I drove to Bay Pines. The facility was everything you'd expect from a company that specializes in burying people with chamomile tea and paperwork. White walls, artificial lavender scent pumped through the vents, a smiling receptionist with glassy eyes, and a scripted greeting. "Can I help you?" she asked. I held up my badge. "I'm here for Robert Lawson. You'll take me to him now." Her face faltered. "He's resting, I believe. Let me check with his care liaison." I didn't move. "Check fast, or I check every inch of this facility and seize your intake records as part of a criminal detainment investigation." That did it. Within 5 minutes, a nurse was leading me down a hallway lined with pastel watercolors and motivational quotes. I noticed security cameras at every junction, but none in the rooms themselves. A legal workaround. We stopped outside room 211. She opened the door. "He's been sedated the past few days," she said. Adjusting to the environment, I stepped inside, and there he was, my grandfather, propped up in a recliner, too clean for someone as messy as him. His face was pale. His oxygen tubes were hooked up to a machine twice the size of his home unit, humming softly in the background. His eyes fluttered when he heard my boots. "If you're a nurse," he murmured, "bring better pudding. This stuff tastes like drywall." I swallowed the lump in my throat and grinned. "It's me, old man. Time to go home." His eyes cracked open, bloodshot but sharp. "About damn time," he muttered. "They took my watch, said I was disoriented." I told him I was disoriented because the nurse looked like she drove a forklift to work. I leaned down and whispered, "Don't say another word. You're about to be free, and Karen's about to wish she'd never heard our name." I wheeled him out with the nurse trailing like a lost duck. Outside, I strapped him into my truck called Dispatch and had them record the pickup under Incident Report 1449, forced relocation of a mentally sound elder without medical or legal authorization. Once we were clear of Bay Pines, Grandpa leaned his head back and exhaled slow. "They drugged me with chamomile and tapioca," he said. "That should be a crime on its own." "It is now," I told him. "I'm making it one." We stopped by the house so he could see Rusty. The dog lost his mind, howling and pawing at Grandpa's knees until he finally wheezed out, "I missed you too, you overgrown carpet." Then we kept driving right to the community center. Karen was inside. I knew she would be. The board had called a special closed session to discuss upcoming property annexations. I didn't bother knocking. I kicked the doors open like a sheriff in a spaghetti western. Badge flashing, boots echoing on the tile. The whole room turned. Karen pal dead. Don tried to stand. I held up the deed, the covenant, the signed letters, and said in one voice loud enough to rattle windows, "You kidnapped the wrong man." Grandpa, groggy and grinning, lifted one hand from the wheelchair and flipped them all off. Slow, deliberate, knuckles cracked from age and war. "Nice clubhouse," he said. "You run bingo, or just cons?" It was the best damn moment of my life. The morning after I wheeled Grandpa into that HOA board meeting and dropped a legal nuke on their laminated lies, the town exploded like a wasp nest under a weed torch. By 9 a.m., our small, sleepy sheriff's department had issued warrants for all 3 primary board members. Karen Mitchell, HOA president and full-time tyrant, was pulled from her front porch in a silk robe and pink Crocs as news vans circled her like vultures. She tried to play the victim, crying for the cameras, screaming about ungrateful residents, and blaming political conspiracies didn't matter. Her mugshot hit Channel 8 News before her driveway dried from the morning sprinklers. Don Levinsky, Mr. Plachecking, Mr. Place in Southern. Budget guy tried to make a break for it, packed his Toyota with shredded documents, and fled toward state lines. He didn't make it past exit 12 before the troopers boxed him in like a toddler in a sandbox. He wet himself, according to the arresting officer. Marissa, head of the pool committee and resident hypocrite, was caught in her garage trying to delete HOA email records off a burner laptop, while her teenage son live streamed the whole thing on TikTok. Her account now has over 3 million views. The caption, "When your mom runs an HOA cartel and you just wanted to swim." But that was just the start. The real avalanche came when the feds showed up. You see, I didn't just stop with the local police. I'd handed over the forged wellness relocation forms, the payment trail from Bay Pines, and the illegal notary stamps to the state attorney general's office. Then I'd filed a parallel complaint with the IRS, complete with scanned HOA bank records Melody had smuggled out in a Target bag. Turns out those community beautification funds were being funneled into personal home renovations, international trips labeled as conference research, and my personal favorite, a 17-0 custom koi pond installed behind Karen's house. Despite her ongoing campaign against unauthorized water features, the IRS didn't just come knocking. They kicked the door in and served subpoenas like Girl Scout cookies. Karen's koi pond was drained by hazmat crews in the middle of the night, and the fish were adopted by the local high school biology lab. One of them was named Little Karen. It died within a week. Coincidence? Bay Pines got torched next. Once the licensing board saw how many elderly residents had been referred without consent, they pulled the facility's license like it was a bad tooth. Every referral bonus email, every unauthorized detainment, every drug dosage increase was cataloged, boxed, and carted out. The facility was shut down within 72 hours. Staff were dismissed. Administrators resigned. Lawsuits were filed so fast the courthouse ran out of docket numbers. Melody, bless her cardigan-wearing soul, agreed to testify in exchange for full immunity. She even joined a state oversight committee for elder care reform. Apparently, you don't mess with secretaries who scrapbook HOA meeting minutes like war trophies. But let me tell you about the best part, because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about building something better. When the dust settled, the mayor called me personally, said the town needed someone to head the new Community Oversight Board, a position designed to hold HOA boards accountable and ensure community rights were protected, not trampled. I said yes on one condition. I wanted full authority to dissolve the current HOA structure in Willow Lane and write a new one from the ground up. They gave me the keys. The first thing I did was delete the violation system. Every fine, every petty notice, every fabricated ticket about lawn chairs or porch decor gone. Next, I made all HOA meetings public. No more closed sessions, no more secret votes. Then I implemented term limits. No more lifetime dictators and cardigans. Karen's reign was officially dead, buried, and composted into the soil she used to cite as non-compliant. But I wasn't finished. See, Grandpa's land, the one they tried to annex to steal through trickery and force, had been legally immune to HOA authority for over 80 years. With the original covenant verified and logged with the county, we not only proved they'd acted illegally, we also got the land res-zoned as a protected community historical site. And with that came naming rights. Which is why 3 weeks later, Grandpa stepped out onto his porch for the first time since he'd been taken, looked out across his front yard, and saw something that made him freeze mid-step. At the edge of the neighborhood, right where the old HOA welcome sign used to stand like a smug border checkpoint, was a new sign, fresh paint, bold letters. It read, "Welcome to Lawson Acres, home of the free and the stubborn." Next to it, beneath a small grove of oak trees, stood a bronze statue. It wasn't fancy, but it was perfect. It showed Grandpa standing tall, one hand gripping his walker, the other holding a steaming mug of tea, oxygen tank strapped to his side like a solder's pack. There was a brass plaque at the base for Robert Lawson, who sat when he wanted, fought when he had to, and never moved his damn porch chair. He stared at it for a long time, lips twitching like he was about to cry, then scoffed. "Looks nothing like me," he muttered. "Too much hair, too little belly." "You're welcome," I said, handing him a coffee. "Had to guess what you looked like before HOA stress aged you 20 years. He snorted, sipped, and nodded toward the sign. "Can't believe you pulled that off." "Oh, I didn't." I said. "You did? I just made sure everyone else finally saw what you've always been." We sat there a while, the breeze playing with the edge of the flag he'd reinstalled, this time on a 30-foot pole with full city approval and a floodlight that made it visible from space. A few neighbors walked by, some waving, others stopping to take selfies with the statue. One little kid stood in front of it and saluted, then ran off giggling. Grandpa didn't say much. He didn't have to. That quiet smirk said everything. As the sun dipped low and the sky turned the color of old bourbon, I leaned back in my chair and took a long sip of coffee. The kind Grandpa used to brew with a spoonful of motor oil for flavor. Rusty Lake curled at our feet, snoring like a tractor. Peace had returned to the porch, but it wasn't silence. It was earned quiet like the land itself had exhaled. We sat like that for a long time. Two stubborn men, one long road behind us, one clear sign in front of us. No HOA, no more fake notices, just Lawson Acres. Home of the free, home of the stubborn. Home at. Stay vigilant, but don't be cynical. Sometimes, the truth is buried beneath layers of legal paperwork, fake smiles, and so-called community concern. But as this story shows, justice isn't out of reach if you're willing to dig for it, stand your ground, and never back down. Even if it means prying up floorboards in an old shed. 1. Never underestimate the power of original documents. Old deeds, faded signatures, records that seem useless, they can be the key to exposing the truth. Preserve history, know your rights, and protect them at all costs. 2. No one is too small to make a difference. A board secretary, a dog named Rusty, and one stubborn old man in a porch chair, each played a part. Don't think you don't matter. Doing what's right just needs one person brave enough to stand up, and others will follow. 3. The system can be abused, but it can also be repaired. HOAs, healthcare centers, even local government, they need people willing to face the truth, speak up, and take action. Fighting injustice isn't rebellion. It's your duty as a citizen. For family isn't just blood, it's legacy, memory, and loyalty. Pay attention to the small things your loved ones say. Sometimes, what sounds like a ramble is actually a warning, a secret, or a dying wish. 5. And most importantly, don't let anyone tell you that you don't have the right to sit peacefully on your own porch. Freedom doesn't live in HOA fine print about patio furniture. It lives in being able to live honestly, on your land, by your values. Final message. Protect each other. Question what feels too perfect. And if anyone ever tries to mess with your grumpy old grandpa for anything other than genuine care, stand up. You may not get a statue, but you just might rebuild justice.